guys, welcome to the latest episode of Fieros in Scale, where today we're going to be looking at two fieros that are more than meets the eye. Now, some of you may recognize the blue car, as it is somewhat well known among fiero circles, as Punch Counterpunch, the Transformer. The one on the right is a little lesser known, but no less interesting, and that's Sparky from the GoBots. Now, the GoBots and the Transformers were the two transforming robot toy lines in the early 80s. The Transformers has gone on to worldwide fame in movies, while the GoBots seems to have faded a little bit into obscurity. So we're going to take a look at these two and see what they had to offer back in the 80s in the terms of action and adventure for the Fiero. Now, the first one we're going to look at is the GoBot, as it is the lesser known, and I think at this point probably a little more interesting because it is such an unknown Fiero toy. And it's an interesting one because it actually comes with real rubber tires. We'll take a look here. This actually has real rubber tires. Freewheeling, it actually rolls very well. Has all the required Fiero details. Here you have the pop-up headlights, the iconic hood, the rear deck lid, even the engravings for the vents. Of course, you have our famous rear window, the tail lights. Everything is there that says Fiero. Now, on the undercarriage, basically what we have is your sci-fi engraving there. This is the transforming robot's head. All in all, it's a very nicely made toy. As you can see, the air intakes there. Here you have the body line. Even though it's not painted, it is there. This is patterned after the 1984 Fiero, as you can tell by the shape of the bumpers and the body line, the way it goes across the front. Really interesting little toy. So let's take a look at its robot form. Alright, I'm going to take you through his transformation so we can see it all here firsthand, exactly what it takes to turn the Fiero into Sparky the GoBot. And Sparky was his name. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we have to pull out the doors. It's a little tight after all of these years, which separates the front end into three sections here with the doors. Then we're going to fold him down. First, we're going to spin out the legs. As you can see there, he folds down and over. The legs spin down and around. We're going to pop out the feet. And there we have our brave robot warrior, Sparky, the GoBot. Now, this toy is about 30 years old. It is a little loose in areas, but for the most part, it still transforms very well. In terms of articulation, there's not a lot. You have the arms. They'll come out. They'll come forward. They'll tilt all the way up and around. The head has no articulation to speak of, as all it does is just fold up and sit flat there. Now, the chest is supposed to tab into here. But again, with all the years, it's a little loose, but not bad. Now, the feet also go outward. There is no forward and rear movement. But at the state of 80s technology and the toys in the 80s, this was actually a pretty cool little transforming robot. It also just happens to be a Fiero. Alright, let's pop him back into his normal mode. Flip him over, fold the legs back, goes back in. And put that tab in there and right there. And now Sparky is a Fiero again. It is a pretty cool little toy sold by Tonka as a major competitor to the Transformers. The GoBots actually started before the Transformers. But we all know who won that battle, as history shows that the Transformers are king of the transformable robots. So this is approximately about 1/64 scale. This is completely unrestored. I haven't had a chance to polish or clean this one up. But it is a pretty neat little bit of Fiero history. And a pretty decent representation of the Fiero. And it actually is a little more realistic representation than the much more popular and more well-known Counterpunch. Punch Counterpunch, which we're going to look at next. Okay, here we have Punch Counterpunch. As I said, it is not as realistic a depiction of the Fiero as the GoBot was, as those orange wheels might pretty much give that away. But if we look close, we can still see all of major Fiero characteristics. We have our quarter windows, our headlights, again, the hood with the body lines. This one differentiates from the other one by having a GT nose, as this one is probably an 85 GT, or it could be an 86 SE, judging by the aero bodywork that's represented here. And here we see it's got the aero bumper. They even gave us the grille work. The custom scoops on the side. Very popular option for Fiero in the 80s. Now the only difference is that here we have some of the mechanism for the robot itself, along with, as I said, the orange wheels. Now the interesting part of Punch Counterpunch is that the robot itself is a double agent. It is at the same time as an Autobot. It's a Decepticon. So this one actually features 3 transformation modes, where it is a robot, actually 2 different robots, and a Pontiac Fiero. So let's take a look at them in robot form. Alright, here we go, guys, in both of his robot forms. I just happen to have 2 of these, so I figured I'd just show you his form as Punch and Counterpunch at the same time. As this is Counterpunch, that's Punch, and he is the Autobot, he's the Decepticon. Now, as you can see, both the transformations use just slightly different variations on the transformation theme in order to create the character. As you can see, the front fenders on Punch aim downward, while on Counterpunch they actually aim upward, and that's to make allowances for the use of both arms. As you can see here, that's the blue Counterpunch arm, and that's Punch's arm. They're both housed within the front fenders at the front end of the car. So back then, with the technology they had, this is what they came up with for giving you the 2 robot forms in exactly the same body. Now, another neat little feature of the Punch and Counterpunch set is that the emblems are affected by heat. So, as it was back in the 80s, if you held on to it, you rubbed your finger on it for a little bit, it would reveal the emblem of what allegiance the Autobot had. Now when you're in blue, you hold on to it. Let's see if it still works. I don't know if it does, but we're going to see if... Hold it there for a minute and we'll see if it reveals. And as you can see there, let's see if we can give you a good look at that. There it is. Now it's starting to show the Decepticon emblem. So I guess it still works even after all these years. There we go. And then it starts to fade back to black. And let's try punch. There we go. And there's the Autobot emblem. Yes, the good guys takes a little longer. You know, it's a lot harder being good than it is being bad. There we go. And then it fades to black. Now, as far as the heads go, they came up with a fascinating way of putting two heads on one body. Basically, all you do is flip its helmet back and forth. When you punch, you put the helmet this way, and that shows you Punch's face. Then you just slide it that way. You turn him around, and there's Counter Punch. Now, he was a double agent for the Autobots who would infiltrate the Decepticon ranks. That's Counter Punch, and that would allow him to figure out what they were up to and give the Autobots a chance to stop them. Now the transformation sequence is quite a bit more involved than the sequence for the GoBot. So let me just pull one of these guys out and I'll show you how we go from counterpunch to punch. Let's take his gun out of his hands. Basically, you're going to fold his arm back into the fender. You're going to, let me see if I remember how to do this. It's been quite a while. There we go. There we go. This folds this way, this folds this way. This folds back down to hide the Decepticon emblem. We are going to flip those fenders over, down, over, down. And then we are going to pull out the hands if we can. So it's been a long time since this thing has done any sort of transformation. There we go. We'll get the other hand out. There we go. And then we'll flip the feet back up. And now you have punch. So there we go. That's our transformation from one robot to the other. Now let's turn him back into a car. Okay, we're going to put the hands back in. Hands back in. We're going to lift the shoulders up. Up. We're going to pop the cab of the car open. And then we are going to fold the head back in. Now we're going to put the cab of the car back down. And fold the fender up. Front of the car is all back together. Now, this is the tricky part here. We have to first bring the legs together, push them up, flip them over, and then in and snap, snap, we're back together. And now we're a Fiero. So that is two of the more interesting fieros in scale. This appears to be more like a 1/32nd scale, I want to say. Not the... While Sparky appears to be more like a... I would say probably a 1/64th scale, similar to a Hot Wheels. Which in turn may have been part of the reason why Sparky wasn't as big a hit, because he was a lot smaller. Than the Transformers. As you can see here, when we try to keep them all in frame, Sparky definitely is quite a bit smaller. So there we go, guys. That is just another interesting little tidbit of Fiero history in scale. There is a company out there now that's trying to remake Punch Counter Punch as a Fiero GT. I did see it advertised a while back. I put an order in for one. Haven't received it yet. I'm hoping that someday soon. But with the way things are, it's probably going to be a while. As you may know or not know, Punch Counter Punch was switched to a Lamborghini in later years, even though it maintained the same colors. But we all want to see him back as a Fiero. So that's it, guys, for this episode of Fieros in Scale. We have Punch Counter Punch and Sparky the GoBot in 1/32nd scale, I want to say, and 1/64th. Two great little collectibles in Fiero history. Alright, guys, that's it for this episode. Remember, if you like what I'm doing and you want to see more, because we got plenty more of Fieros in Scale coming, then hit that subscribe button. Even if you're just watching once in a while, just hit the subscribe button. You'll get a notification every time a new episode comes out, and it really helps out. And give a thumbs up if you like what I'm doing, and leave me some comments, because I'd love to hear from you guys out there in the Fiero world. Do you guys have these? What do you think of them? Alright, so that's going to be it, and I will see you on the next one.